How'd you even get out of town?
All right, we call it to order. Go ahead and get started. Respect everybody's time. So, Rachel, would you call the roll, please?
Russ Rose.
Here.
Scott Trees.
Here.
Jim Silliman.
Here.
Keith Griffey. Arthur Jones.
Here.
Mike Heichu. Mayor Larry Dangerfield. Jeremy Rainey.
Here.
Kevin Gibson.
Here.
Deputy Judge John Park. Tom Doyle. Pat Hargadon.
Here.
Nicole Ruffolo. Here. Melvin Phoenix. Judge Scott Bates. Judge Scott Travis. Judge John Ogburn. Neil Martindale.
Here.
Jim Hoskins. Jonathan Bates.
Here.
Mark Bates.
All right, got quorum. Awesome. All right, first thing on the agenda is the minutes from the January 14th meeting. If you've had an opportunity to look at those, or if you haven't, please do. We would accept the motion second to approve.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye, or raise your hand. Okay. All right, moving right on down. I guess first I want to say, I know a lot of folks are zooming in. A lot of folks still here dealing with the flood and issues there. So hopefully everybody's able to get their arms around it and move on. But Russell, is Russell online?
Yes.
Yep, I sure am.
Hey, Russell, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all are doing well.
Yeah. You gonna give us an update on what's going on in KIA?
Sure thing. Justin, can I share my screen?
Yeah.
All right. I'll get to it. First off, I just want to start by saying thank you all, managers and operators of the water and sewer systems. This has been an unprecedented time of rain and flooding in Kentuckiana and the Bluegrass region, Western and Eastern and Central Kentuckys. So thank you all for the work that you do. We all very much appreciate everything that you do. I was asked to give just a brief presentation on the upcoming funding availability of the loan and grant programs administered by the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority. So I'll start out by saying this is probably information that you all already know. There are eligible borrowers and eligible projects. Eligible projects include any type of construction or acquisition of treatment facilities or distribution systems, any kind of water resource projects. KIA can also fund solid waste projects, dams, and stormwater control. We have in the past funded gas and electric utility projects, but it's been a long time since we've done that. So there's a wide array of projects that we can fund through our loan programs, and that's expanded even further in the Kentucky Waters program, which we'll get into a little bit later in this presentation. Of course, to be eligible for these loan programs, you must be a governmental agency, meaning you are either a city, a county, a water district or sewer sanitation district, water association, or water commission. Now, two of the major funds that KIA deals with are the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. In order to be eligible for those funds, your project must be on the State Revolving Fund priority list. So we have several state and federal loan programs. Of course, the most common and the ones with the highest amounts of money in them are Fund A, the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which is a federal fund, and Fund F, the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, which is also a federal fund. There are also Funds B and C and the Kentucky Waters Program. Those three are state funds, and those are not subject to federal law. So that means that the requirements for Davis-Bacon, American Iron and Steel, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise do not apply to those state funds as they do with the federal funds. With funds A and F, of course, there is a call for projects every September. Once that call closes in December, the Division of Water then ranks and prioritizes those projects according to a guidance document developed by the Division of Water. Right now, we're in the stage where the division has sent that project priority list back to KIA, and we are currently drafting the intended use plan for the use of those clean water and drinking water funds. The intended use plan is a document that is submitted to EPA annually, and it basically spells out how much funding we got from the SRF programs and how we're planning to spend it. So right now we're in the intended use plan stage for those projects ranked under the current year. We expect loan invitations to go out later this spring and summer. The first round of those loan invitations will go out. At that point, if you accept that loan invitation, you'll be required to submit an application to KIA, and we will go forward and do a credit analysis and take that to the KIA board for final approval before we sign any kind of loan agreement. And again, for funding from A and F, your projects must be submitted on that priority list through the Division of Water and KIA. So where do we get funding from for A and F? The largest amount comes from loan repayments. The majority of the funds that go back out to fund more projects are from previous loans. Those are combined with the federal cap grant for each year and the state match. The state has to match 20% of the federal cap grant. Now, the federal cap grant over the past 4 or 5 years has been subject to earmarks. So I believe our federal cap grant level for drinking water has gone down to about 6 million in the base program, where it used to be about 18 to 20 million. We were informed just a week or so ago that the federal government will not place earmarks on the current federal funding cap grant. However, earmarks will likely begin again in 2026. So for funds A and F, you have the federal cap grant, the state match, and the loan repayment, which goes into one bucket. And from that one bucket, we can provide additional loans for water and sewer infrastructure projects. There is a large amount of money in that bucket. As you all know, back in 2021, the Biden administration signed the Infrastructure and Investments and Jobs Act into law. This is also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. The Trump administration prefers the language of Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Acts over bill, so that's the connotation and that's the verbiage we will use for it moving forward. Of course, with the bill funds, it added 5 additional cap grants to the base clean water and drinking water cap grants. Those include clean water emerging contaminants, clean water supplemental funds, drinking water emerging contaminants, drinking water lead, and drinking water supplemental. We are in year, I believe, 4 out of 5 of bill. So funding through bill will be this year, and next year will be the last year of the bipartisan infrastructure law unless the Trump administration chooses to keep that moving forward. Moving on to our funds B and C. Again, these are a state loan program. These are different from the funds A and F in that it's on a first come, first served basis. There is a lot less money in these two state funds than there are in the federal funds. So you get that process rolling by submitting a letter of intent to John Brady at the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority. At that point, he will send out a loan invitation, and at that point, KIA would then conduct a credit analysis. And just like with the A&F projects, those projects would have to be approved by the KIA board before any loan agreement is signed. With funds B and C, those initiated several years ago, and the state legislator initially pumped money into that. Every so often, they will pump more money into those two funds, but the majority of the money there is from loan repayments. So, loan repayments from previous borrowers is going back into the till for new loans. You'll be hard pressed to find a better interest rate than any of our programs. For funds A, B, and F, the standard rate is 2.25%, and the lowest standard rate is 0.5%. So those funds, A, B, and F, are based on the median household income of the borrower, as well as the affordability rate of water and sewer in those areas. Fund C is considered a fund of last resort. It is based on terms or years and not by the MHI and affordability. The interest rates on those loans are progressively higher depending on the number of years you need to utilize those loans. So in order to qualify for a lower interest rate and the possibility of principal forgiveness, the system, the service area or project area has to be 80% or below of the state MHI. And the affordability index is calculated for the cost per 4,000 gallons of water. And all of that information is in the Water Resource Information System. If your utility has more detailed median household income data, I would ask that you reach out to Tom Schubert and Don Shire at the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority to provide that additional data, particularly for those projects such as lead, which may be a specific area within the service area, which could have a lower MHI. On to the program which you're probably most interested about is the Kentucky Waters program. This is a new program as of this year. The legislature just completed funding 34 projects out of this fund. WATERS stands for the Water and Wastewater Assistance for Troubled and Economically Restrained Systems. This program acts differently than the rest of the loan programs that we have, whereby KIA accepts and reviews applications and conducts a credit analysis for the applicants. But the General Assembly and the General Assembly alone decides who gets loans and funding. KIA administers that financing after the session ends. So for this year, we are going through that process of sending out those letters to notify those applicants that they have received funding as decided on by the General Assembly. $75 million is allocated in fiscal years 24 and 25, which is the current fiscal year, and an additional $75 million will be allocated for fiscal year 25-26, meaning there's $150 million total between this year and next state fiscal year. The KIA board, through the Kentucky law, does have the authority to fund emergency projects out of that $75 million. Those emergency projects can receive funding before the General Assembly convenes again next year. However, the funds for the current state fiscal year are completely allocated, And any type of emergency project that occurs right now, especially with the flooding going on, the KIA board could decide to allocate funds toward that emergency project. However, no funds could be released until the start of the new fiscal year, state fiscal year 2026, which starts on July 1st. If you would like to view a copy of the Kentucky Waters Report, you can find that on KIA's website. A hyperlink is here in the presentation, which will go out to all of you all who are in attendance. The Kentucky General Assembly passed House Joint Resolution 30 or HJR 30. This contains the list of funded projects which are funded for state fiscal year 24-25. It also authorizes the release of $21.6 million for fiscal year 25-26 for projects to be completed. So it funded three projects. It funded three projects, planning and design, from 24-25 funds. And the General Assembly saw fit to fund the construction for those three projects, equating to that $21.6 million. Which means, and this is key, that instead of $75 million when we start 2026 fiscal year, there's only going to be $53.3 million available for projects under state fiscal year 2026. Let me say that again. Instead of the $75 million, there's only going to be $53.3 million in the Kentucky Waters Fund starting in state fiscal year 2026. Add to that if there are any emergency projects between July 1 to the end of the year, then the KIA board can further use that 53 million to fund those emergency projects. So that means that by the time the General Assembly convenes again in January of next year, there may not even be $53.3 million available. It may be a lesser amount, depending on the amount of emergency projects. The KIA board did fund 4 emergency projects the current state fiscal year, which equated to about, I believe, $20 to $25 million. So there wasn't a full 75 million for the General Assembly to fund projects with, even in the current or the legislative session that just ended. House Bill 741 was drafted and started in the House to update the Kentucky Waters Program. However, it did not pass the General Assembly during the session. So that bill would have tightened up eligibility requirements and some other aspects of the program. But however, since that did not pass, those changes will not take effect. So that means that the eligibility criteria, all of these 9 criteria, stay exactly the same. They're not going to change. It's based heavily off of a system's financial capability or capacity, partially with health-based violations, and those systems under an agreed order, and those systems with water loss over 30%. But if your utility has it's a low MHI area, they're having problems paying their bills, they're in the red instead of in the black, then the Kentucky Waters Program is the type of program for them. The General Assembly created this program with the intent to help those economically restrained systems get a better footing so that they can then apply for other funding programs like the SRF. It's not necessarily intended to fund a $20 to $40 million treatment project. The General Assembly has steered away from those types of projects as a whole. It's meant for those economically restrained systems to get a better financial footing for the future. That also means that the types of projects that can be funded through the Kentucky Waters Program is the same as well. So not only can it fund capital construction projects, just like the SRF or Fund B and C programs, it can also fund non-capital projects. So any kind of improvements for infrastructure, planning, repair, maintenance, getting technical assistance to help you with your day-to-day issues with rate setting, cost of service, getting your accounting in order, any type of financial inadequacies, including debt service coverage, refinancing of debt. The Kentucky Waters program is there for that purpose. So just know that none of the criteria and none of the types of projects have changed from the first year. The application process may be tweaked a little. Any kind of changes, however, that occur will be approved by the KIA board. And we do plan on holding a training for potential applicants on those changes and on the program as a whole later this spring from the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority. Current interest rates with the Kentucky Waters program is a 0.5 percentage rate lower than the SRF programs. Again, that's an extremely aggressive and very low interest rate. You will not probably find that interest rate anywhere else. Just a reminder, the General Assembly determines which projects are funded and how they are funded, whether they're funded solely by a grant or a loan with interest or a loan with principal forgiveness or some other type of forgivable loan. How that project or how those projects are funded is also determined by the General Assembly. So that means if your local mayor or you yourself write to the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority promoting a project, urging some type of assistance, whether it be by grant or principal forgiveness or whatever, the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority can receive that, and we will retain that. However, we do not make those final decisions. That lays solely with the General Assembly. I know everyone's probably needing funding right now from the flooding. Again, with the Kentucky Waters program, those funds for the next state fiscal year could not be released until July 1st of this year. So KIA is encouraging those systems that need emergency funding to apply through the Kentucky SAFE program through the Division of Emergency Management. We would urge you to contact Kentucky Emergency Management. Their phone number is, my computer going here, pardon me, 800-255-2587. Again, that's 800-255-2587. And the director is Eric Gibson. So if you have any type of funding of projects, any type of emergency projects right now, we urge you to reach out to Kentucky Emergency Management. We have had issues with round one of Kentucky Waters funding where if they applied and received Waters funding, it would negate them from receiving FEMA funds. And we do not want that to happen because the FEMA funds could fund a lot more than the Waters program could. So if you have any questions whatsoever, this is my contact information. Please reach out to myself or Miss Sandy Williams. If you have questions pertaining to the Kentucky Waters program, you can reach out to Mr. Rick Harris. He is the program administrator for Kentucky Waters. With that, that's the end of my presentation. If you all have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them.
Okay, questions for Russell? So Russell, you hit on a good point about the next 75 million and that being reduced to 53 and might also remind folks there were 750 million in requests. So I would, if you're gonna apply, I would apply early and get with Justin, and I know he can help you with those applications as well. So make sure you get in line and you're ready. So Russell, thanks for doing that for us and bringing us up to date. Appreciate that.
Thank you all. And again, thank you all for your service and for what you've done right now during the flooding. It's not going unseen. So thank you very much.
All right. Thanks. So Justin, we're down to you, for the water coordinators report.
So in January, we had Nick Roeder with Kentucky Rural Water Finance, and then today we had KIA. I'm just trying with cleaner water coming to a close here, just trying to, during these meetings, make sure that all of you are aware of the funding out there. So, you know, you can still lean on us to help apply for funding through these options. I haven't heard anybody reach out from Nick Roeder's presentation in January, but if anybody's interested in that, I have all the information. I actually met with Bullitt County Judge Executive Jerry Summers. We're looking at maybe utilizing that funding for a project in Bullitt County. But if anybody's interested in that, that is you know, pretty accessible. Takes, you know, 3 to 6 months to actually get a hold of that, way quicker than some of the SRF or CDBG or other funding sources that we utilize for you all. So Russ just gave us a great overview of what's available right now through KIA. We're here to help you all apply for that. And then there's, you know, also if you're eligible for a community development block grant, I know our division is being pretty aggressive about finding what communities will be eligible for applying for that. So we'll be reaching out to you guys and making sure that if there's any projects and get funded through these sources that we're here and assisting you all with that. Our KIPDA Community and Economic Development Division staff, it also assisted KIPDA Water and Wastewater Systems who applied for SRF funding for the last cycle with answering all the questions and addressing all the comments from the Division of Water for all the projects that apply for funding. And we got those submitted in February. And so we're moving full steam ahead with those. As Russ just let us know, it sounds like they're getting to work on the intended use plan now. Division of Water already ranked those and scored them. So hopefully we'll be finding out who got invited for funding sooner than later. They usually try to get that out by the end of the fiscal year. So by June, when that IUP comes out, we'll know where everybody landed on that, and we'll be ready to assist you guys, hopefully with whoever got invited for funding for that. Ryan Lloyd and Ryan's over here. He's my coworker doing all the GIS mapping now for the KI contract. We've come by all your all's communities and done the system visits. So through the WR, the Water Resource Information System portal. So we updated all the data that. I think we're about 80% done with all of those system visits. I did want to broach one thing on that. We're doing a Kentucky Water and Wastewater Management Plan with a rough draft. That is due in June. That's for KIA and the Division of Water. So he and I are working on that. Our division is working on that. We currently pretty much have everything with your all's needs assessments knocked out. But since that is due in June, we might be reaching out to you guys here in the next month or so just to get some clarification. It's basically just a plan that shows the prioritization of your all systems, what you all, and most of you are already familiar with it. We've tackled that in our system visits. But while we're wrapping up the draft, we might be reaching out to you guys via email or phone call just to make sure that we got your priorities straight and that everything looks good on that plan before we submit it for KIA approval. Once again, he was talking about asset management. Russ was talking about earlier. Russ said, you know, the asset management plan and strategic plan, capital improvement plan, all those really help your chances of getting funding secured when we apply for these. There are still some systems in our region that don't have an asset management plan or a strategic capital improvement plan in place. Most of you all have some, but we just want to make sure that if you guys need any assistance with that. So when this, you know, this next funding cycle for SRF is going to be upon us here sooner than we think, you know. So if you guys need help with that, there is the Environmental Finance Center. They're out of North Carolina, but they work regionally, and they can assist you guys with doing a good snapshot of where your financials are and make sure that all your financials are in order, that you guys are up to date with your audits, in good standing, can take on a loan. So then when we apply for SRF or any other kind of grants or loans, they can already provide a portfolio for you all showing that you are in good standing and ready for that. So if you need any assistance with that, we help Mount Washington, Taylorsville, Trimble County Water with that. So if anybody else needs any help before we apply for this next funding cycle, please reach out to me or Felicia and we can get you guys set up with that. Also, cleaner water. We have 1.5 years left now before all those projects need to be wrapped up. And I know it sounds like plenty of time, but it's going to be here upon us before you know it. So after we wrap up this water management plan and the system visits, I would really like to switch gears and make sure all those cleaner water projects are moving full steam ahead into construction phases. So we're not looking at, you know, 2026, trying to get those put together, last minute or anything, because I don't want to risk losing any of those funds or not getting those projects constructed. So if you have a cleaner water program funded project that's still out there, let's start tackling that here this late spring, summer together, make sure we get that good rolling, get those funds out and dispersed, draw workbooks and whatnot. The Kentucky Rural Water Association's Operator Expo will be held Wednesday, May 21st and Thursday, May 22nd at the Hardin County Fairgrounds in Glendale, Kentucky. Registration is open for that. Always, Kentucky Rural always puts on a great expo and a great conference. So if you guys haven't registered for that, maybe look into doing that. It's always a good time. And that is Wednesday, May 21st and Thursday, May 22nd.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And that's in Hardin County. And then also, the Kentucky Water and Wastewater Operators Association will be holding their 67th annual conference. That's in May 6th through May 8th. That's going to be in Owensboro at the Owensboro Convention Center there. Conference will provide access to over 60 technical presentations on the 6th, 7th, and 8th, and they'll offer operators the ability to earn 18 hours of continuing education for license renewal purposes. So KWWOA and Kentucky Rural Water are great partners of ours and always do a great job. So I always want to make sure that our operators are aware of those. Other than that, our staff is administering SRF loans and working on all the cleaner water. And we're looking at helping out with CDBG for utilities. So if anybody, I know that Louisville Water, we're working with you guys on your lead service replacement projects. They got funded through KIA as well. So we're here to assist in any way. I know we have some new faces. Jonathan Bates is now with Eminence. He came from LaGrange. So thank you for being here today, sir. Appreciate you. And we're just working to help everybody get out of this situation that we're in right now. If we can assist in any way with any kind of flood response relief or anything like that, let us know. We're integrally connected to KIA and Division of Water. So if we can help you guys out with that any way, shape, or form, please let us know as well. That concludes my report, Chairman.
Thank you very much. All right, any questions for Justin? Anybody have anything, any county updates they want to provide? Anybody from the audience have anything they want to bring up? Clay, you've always got something to say. What do you do?
Russ, you always say I have.
I think he just wants to hear from
Right, yeah, Robert just moved over.
I've uttered a lot of words over the years, but we're still waiting for you to really say something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so I will tell you, Scott brought up, it's a good point. We're in the process of trying to spin back up KY Warren and get that and make that very active. And so we've had a lot of folks participate in that. Pete with Louisville Water, and there's been a lot of folks volunteer for that. So once that gets done, I think we'll have a representative come and talk about that here in one of our feature meetings.
For sure.
So, yeah.
We were going to have Sarah Gaddis join us today, so I think she's going to be our guest speaker for July. But if anybody ever has any pertinent or anyone that they would like to hear from, any kind of specific interest, please let us know. Russ and I always try to do a good job of getting guest speakers here for us that we feel benefit you all. But if there's any,
Sarah was just a little busy.
Yeah, just a little bit, just a little.
Stacy, nice. Thank you for being here. Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So, all right, anybody else? Seeing none, we'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you, Judge.
Not the shortest meeting ever.
It's not the shortest one ever, but
Not
it-
ever. It's in the 505.
yeah. All right.